And I think that my dream is to create this little safe haven. It's built like a fortress. So there are giant walls, and when you come up to it, and I want it to feel like a fortress so you can, not so that you can keep the world out, is so that you can feel safe in.
Welcome to another episode of the Gay Barchives Show, where we explore gay history one bar at a time. I'm your host, Art Smith, and today we'll be visiting for the third time with Daniel Nardicio, who is famous for his underwear parties on Fire Island and his bar in Hell's Kitchen in New York City called RedEye. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm good. I'm honored to be to start the third time club.
Yeah, it's there's been a couple people I've interviewed twice, but you are the first person to have three interviews. And as I mentioned when I was talking to you earlier, if you would stop doing stuff, I wouldn't have to do this. If you would just go home and go on vacation for a few years, we could let somebody else be on the show.
Trust me, I would love nothing more than to go on to vacation for a few years. But I have a friend who recently described me as intrepid. And I literally had to get my phone and like look up the word quietly because I didn't know what intrepid meant. But once I found out what it meant, I had to agree with him. So I guess you would call me intrepid.
All right, Mr. Intrepid. So I want to start by talking about Fire Island. Now, in a previous interview back in 2022, I believe it was, we talked about your underwear party, which has been going on for what, a quarter of a century now?
Something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you kind of revolutionized the entertainment scene on Fire Island with this party that was all about guys in their underwear or I guess maybe occasionally swimwear, um,
Yeah.
in the club at the Ice Palace and dancing around and having a great time. Um, you've been attached to Fire Island in some way or another for that entire 25 years. But about what, a year and a half ago, you kind of took over the reins of one of the most iconic clubs in the country. The Ice Palace, which had a sister bar in New York City called Ice Palace 57,
Right.
was opened in 1970 on Fire Island. And to my knowledge, it is the longest running gay dance club in the country and possibly even in the world.
Yes.
What does that feel like for you when that came about? What did you think?
Well, I had been doing events at the Ice Palace for almost 20 years. The Ice Palace, the underwear party had started at a neighbor bar. So when it moved over to the Ice Palace, I'd been doing it almost 20 years. And it was sad. It was like watching an Italian wedding cake sitting out in the rain. It was just like falling apart and no one seemed to care about it. It was this beautiful thing that like just you watched it sort of like the owner had no care in the world for it. And he was just like, just not a good guy. Straight. First of all, straight people, stop owning gay bars. Stop it. Just stop it. We don't need you. We don't like it. Everyone acts like they like it. We don't like it. Straight people just own straight bars like gay people own gay bars. Leave us alone. That's my takeaway on it. But this guy ran it into the ground. And so I never had ever had it cross my mind that it one day would become mine. I just never saw that happening because I knew that he was going to sell the property at some point for way more money. He had in the market for many, many years at an exorbitant rate that no one would meet his price. So I never really saw it happening. And then one day, he didn't even tell me it sold. And it became what happened is the guys that bought it didn't want the club. They didn't want anything to do with it. They just wanted the hotel. So when they came to me and said, "Do you want the club?" At first I said no. And then my partners and I kind of met and I said, "I'm really afraid that someone else is going to get this and run it into the ground and make it like another drag bar in Cherry Grove or I don't know, just there was a lot of things I was worried about happening to it, or it just wouldn't get the renovation and the love that it needed to be honored. So, long story short, me and my partner said we don't really have the energy or time or money to do it because we're, red eyes happening, all that stuff. But we decided to go for it, and it's been incredibly rewarding. It's been difficult, but it's been incredibly rewarding. but I felt like a sense of honor. I mean, most of the things that I do, I figure I don't have that sense of legacy or worrying about, oh, what are people going to remember me for? I don't feel like people remember most people. Most people are not going to be remembered. But I think this might be the thing down the line, the history books. It was, Michael Fesco, Jimmy Murray, then that really dark period of Dr. Frank, and then us, me and my partners. I think will be, remembered.
Well, from the people I know who have been there, they seem to be very excited about it. They seem to have a very positive take on it. They seem to think that it's a fresh perspective and what Cherry Grove needed, because for a long time, not only Cherry Grove, but the Pines have been kind of falling into disrepair. But there was nothing there that was really fresh and crisp and energetic that I know of. And so I think when you came into the Ice Palace, that was something that put a little bit of hope in a lot of people's hearts.
Well, and dread. There were some people that don't like me, and there are a lot of people that I think don't like me because I signify change. We came in and we made broad, big, bold choices. We got rid of Portia, who had been a long-standing performer at the Ice Palace for many, many years. We got rid of DJ Chuck, and people were upset. Excuse me. But I believe that motto, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. And I thought we need to make big choices and we need to figure out like what is our vision. And I'm not that, interested in just like throwback 70s parties that Roy Thode, oh, remember the 70s. I'm like, let's look back at the past, but let's look forward to the future. The past is really important, but it isn't actually that different. There's a mural Bobby Bonanno with the Pines Historical Society got no real interest in the Pines didn't PJ over there didn't really work with Bobby, so Bobby came to me and said we'd love to do something with you to signify the history of Cherry Grove. So he got these old pictures, some by Merrill, I think, but we ended up not using them because of rights. But these old pictures of like Roy Thode and the dance floor packed with guys shirtless, and we made these giant vinyl murals that go over the door, the windows, the sliding glass door windows. And it just shows you what it was like. But I think it was Johnny Dynell, the DJ, who's a dear friend and a mentor to me in many ways. He said, Daniel, when you look at that picture of all those guys shirtless and dancing, it could be a Friday night at the underwear party. So don't let people consistently let you think everything was better back then. Because Johnny didn't say this, but I believe this. When people tell you that everything was better when they were in their 20s, it was because they were better in their 20s. I had a lovely woman at a party when it was announced that we were going to become the owners of the Ice Palace. She came and she goes, "Oh my God, I used to dance there on a Tuesday. Hundreds of people, I'd be dancing. Please, I hope you can bring it back." I said, "Honey, Jesus Christ could not fill the Ice Palace on a Tuesday with people dancing. The world's changed." And I said, and the only reason, even if we did, you wouldn't come. You're a lesbian in your 50s. You know what I mean? You're not going to come to a Tuesday and dance till 4 o'clock in the morning. Those times have just changed. But we do have nights where it's packed and dancing, and we do have celebration, and it is it's a really, really, really special place, the Ice Palace.
So, talking about its history a little bit, as I said, it opened in 1970, which is now 55 years ago.
Yes.
So anybody that was at opening night of Ice Palace is in their 70s by now or beyond.
Yes.
So there aren't that many people running around dying to go to a hip club in their mid to late 70s.
Right.
But what do you know about the impact that the Ice Palace had on Fire Island when it opened? What was the flavor of Fire Island before 1970 versus right after Ice Palace opened?
Well, you have to remember that the Ice Palace started in 1970 with Michael Fesco, but before that it was called the Boom Boom Room. And so it actually already existed. Miss Fire Island started in 1966, and I know that because it celebrates its 58th year as I celebrate my 58th year. I was born in 66. Miss Fire Island started in 66. So I'll always be able to remember it. This coming year will be the 59th. And so the Boom Boom Room had already started, and Miss Fire Ireland is the longest running drag pageant in the United States. Once again, possibly the world. We don't know. I'm not going to compete with Zimbabwe. I don't know about Denmark. I'm not going to, we don't need to be the world. Um, so I knew that as the Boom Boom Room, it was one thing. But Michael Fesco came in, who was a dear friend and someone that very few promoters interest me. But Michael Fesco was like the real deal. We had a lot in common. He was an older man with a booming voice. He could have been an opera singer. He probably was. We had dinner at his house quite a few times. Really lovely guy. Um, Before that, it was not as much like a dance club as much as it was sort of like a lounge. It really was a little bit of a different vibe. Michael reportedly was the one who kind of brought in the tea dance. He was in London. This is what he told me anyway, and he was not a braggart by any stretch of the imagination. He told me he'd gone to London and he went to high tea and he just thought, wouldn't it be fun to put like basically he went to high tea and I think maybe it was at a gay club where they had dancing and they had these queens come out on stage at night and like have tea or something. And he thought we should do it. And he basically brought it back. He had gone to Regine's in Paris, I think, when he was on that trip, which is where they had their first, that was like the first discotheque where they kind of had two turntables and they were able to mix them. The way he described it to me is that he was able to figure out a way with a splitter and a router to get the music to go from one to the other. And that began like beat matching, where the DJs kind of went from one song to the next. Otherwise, there would be like a break between the songs. One would stop, the next song would start. That was, I mean, before that was a huge game changer. Think about it. Like all of a sudden now you had the 70s, you had disco, you had the songs going seamlessly from one to the next. You have tea dance. I mean, it was really a magical time. 77 would be the year if I could go back in time, I would go the Weimar Republic in Berlin or 1977 in New York / Fire Island, pre-AIDS, of course.
1977 was the year that I graduated high school, and also the year that I turned 18, which at the time was the drinking age. So that was kind of a magical time for me as well. It took probably close to a year before I really knew what the gay world was about, that there was such a thing. Because, of course, at that time, and certainly in 1970, when Ice Palace kind of opened under Michael Fesco, there were no gays in the public view unless it was because of some heinous criminal act or some article in a newspaper. But they weren't characters in TV shows and movies. There weren't people to look up to or understand. It was just, a few oddballs that were extremely effeminate that you
But
made some assumptions about.
queer
But
coding, I think is what they call it. There were queer codes that were in movies and stuff, but it was never really spoken, which is astonishing to me that we're still at this point, 75 years or 50 years later from that time period, and that we're still vilified when we honestly, pretty much 99% of the gay people I know, they just want to be left alone. They just want to have fun. They want to wear costumes. They want a pageantry in their life. They want music. They want art. They want, no, gays aren't running around shooting up people. Excuse me.
yeah, but it is a little bit different. And of course, you and I exist in kind of bubbles that are outside what the majority of people across the country experience. I mean,
Right.
you spend, a large part of your time in Hell's Kitchen, which is the hub of the gay bar scene in Manhattan right now,
Right.
or in Fire Island, which is pretty much the hub of the gay scene, in
Right.
the summertime.
Right.
So, and I spent a lot of my time, in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale, which it couldn't get any gayer. I
Yeah.
mean, everything there is rainbows and unicorns. So we live outside that kind of bubble, and of course we've both lived our lives accepting and not hiding from the fact that we're gay, where a lot of other people, for various reasons, you know, professional careers or family issues, have hidden that from most people outside of, the occasional visit to a bar. So
Right.
we have a different perspective on that. But really, in the 70s, everybody was there. Everybody was, undercover. There was no gay scene that was
Right.
well known, by the public.
Right.
And it was a pretty bold move to create a big gay dance club on Fire Island in the 70s. I mean,
Yeah.
that was something that, most people probably wouldn't have said, hey, you should do this.
Now,
But they
wasn't
did.
Jimmy Murray straight though? He was straight, the guy who owned it before
I,
Michael Fesco.
he may have been, but he also owned the Red Parrot in New York and Ice Palace 57 in New York. And
Right. Well, there's a lot of
so
money in nightclubs. I mean, I say that the exception proves the rule, right? I say that about straight people owning gay clubs, but I also know that there are some people historically that have been great allies and advocates for our communities. So I'm not against it 100%, but by and large, I feel like, Stonewall, all those places, I don't even know who owns them anymore. It's just like, you know, it's just very peculiar. It's a very peculiar world, the gay bar business.
Yeah, Stonewall is now owned by at least one of the owners is a gay woman. I'm not sure who all the owners are, but Stacy Lentz,
Okay.
who is in charge of the Stonewall Inn Gives Back initiative, is also one of the owners of the Stonewall Bar and
Okay.
a Stonewall Inn. And so that has returned. And it previously was also owned when it was revived in the 90s, early 90s, by Jimmy Paisano. I believe he was gay too, right?
I don't know who that is, actually. I don't know.
Jimmy Paisano is the guy that reopened Stonewall in 1990. I think it was originally called Nude Jimmy's at Stonewall Place, and
Mhm.
then he changed it to Stonewall again after a 20-year lapse of it being a bagel shop and Chinese restaurant and whatever else it was in the interim.
Wow.
But I interviewed Bob Gurecki about that last year, and he had a lot of background and information on um, the Red Parrot and Ice Palace 57 and also the Stonewall. So
Yeah, it's been a little out of my scope. I don't look, I work in this business, so do I go out that often? I think I've gone to one bar in all of December. I went to a little Christmas party at Balcone up the street. I just don't go out really because you conserve your energy for your guests. I'm at the club all the time. I'm popping in tonight. Tonight we have a little show with Lily Taylor, the actress from 6 Feet Under, and amongst other things, she's doing a little cabaret downstairs with Billy from Scream Along with Billy from Provincetown. So it's going to be a really fun night. But you have to talk to people, and so I kind of conserve my energy. So I miss all of these things of what's going on in terms of nightlife.
yeah, there's a lot of changes happening in the world right now, and fortunately or unfortunately, there are a number of people whom I've interviewed that have transitioned from careers in other fields like finance or fast food or home construction, made a fortune in those fields, and then started investing in gay bars. All of them that I've interviewed so far, I believe, are gay. And so that's a good thing. And it's also good that they're bringing fresh energy in. They're coming from a place where they ran a business that, ultimately was very successful and then decided to sell out or retire or whatever they did and transition into the gay bar scene, which, as we know since COVID, could definitely use um, a boost.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of things that happened during COVID that just, almost decimated the gay community in some neighborhoods. But
It's very interesting what's happening in terms of that because there's like a no drinking movement. That's one thing the bars have going against them. And I'm not entirely against that. I mean, it's like as someone who's a bar owner, it's like I want people to be healthy. I don't want people to just like drink I really believe in drink responsibly. You know what I mean? And a lot of bar owners don't. It's just like, they want to sell, 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 which I understand. Everyone wants to make money. But COVID really changed things. It is a really negative thing, and in some ways it was a really positive thing because people realized they didn't need to go out as much, or they found other ways of entertaining themselves. So it's definitely changed things.
Yeah. And it's also changed, and I know RedEye is a good example of this. At RedEye, you have an abundance of non-alcoholic beverages available, whether it be coffee-based drinks or mocktails or whatever. People can go in and still enjoy the environment, enjoy the company, enjoy the entertainment, and not have to consume an alcoholic beverage, and nobody cares.
Right. Well, first of all, I love coffee, right? And I don't love alcohol that much. And I have a lot of friends that are sober. So this all made sense. Where you open at 8 a.m., as a coffee bar. I mean, the majority of people still come in and have alcohol, and I'm fine with that, whatever you want to have. But it's kind of nice having it be more centered around coffee during the day.
I agree. And, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people, especially in my Facebook group, people who just randomly comment and say, well, why does it always have to be about the alcohol? Why can't there be gay places that aren't about alcohol? Well, there can, but it's hard to make a coffee shop successful to the level where they can have, 5 or 10,000 square feet and bring in A-list entertainers on the price of coffee because people don't, it's a different vibe. And if you don't want to drink, nobody in the bar forces you to drink. I don't know of any bars that require you to have a certain number of alcoholic beverages just to be there.
Right. Yeah, no, certainly not in Manhattan. You don't really have like a drink minimum at most places in Manhattan. No, I agree with you. It's tricky with Manhattan rents if people are going to come in and just have a coffee, but I also am just not in the business. I'm just never really interested in me to force people to drink. It's just not it's not how I'm built. I want people to enjoy themselves, and if they, so I'm trying to find a balance with all of that in my life.
Now, have you brought that energy over to the Ice Palace as well?
Oh, it's open at 8 o'clock in the morning as a coffee bar. And it's actually more successful there than it is even at Red Eye because it's outdoors. So you can get up in the morning and you grab a coffee and you sit out in the sun and like look at the news or read the paper. I love it. It's so great. I go with my dogs in the morning and they're running around because it's a dance floor and everything, and they're running around and other people have their dogs and we all just sit there and everyone does their thing. The dogs play. It's kind of really magical.
So we've pretty much established that over its history, Ice Palace has been kind of an iconic entertainment spot on Fire Island, and that it had some impact on the energy that has evolved in that space from the 70s until now. As you mentioned, a lot of people long for the old days, but there's also a new breed of people that are just now in their mid 30s or 40s that are starting to explore gay resort areas, which Fire Island certainly is one of them in the summertime. Um, so now that you're, running Ice Palace, how would you describe it to them? How would you entice them that this is the kind of place that they would want to spend a few weeks on vacation and, forgetting about what it was in the past? It doesn't matter what happened in 1970 because they're coming in 2025. So how would you describe the space for someone that was wanting to come now? And
It's interesting. I bring a lot of newbies out there and I watch the way that they experience. First of all, there's nowhere else like it in the world. Maybe that I can't remember the name, Sitges, maybe it's a place like Sitges or something like that in Spain. But there's nowhere like it in the world. And I've seen people from every country come to Fire Island and just be blown away by it. The fact that there are no cars, you're constantly interacting with people. Every night there's something to do. Sex lurks around every corner, but if you don't want that yoga, you can just go to the beach. It's like very make your own adventure, and you're just like in a very relaxed environment. You could invite it to a party and then you walk in and it's an orgy, or everyone could be singing show tunes. It's like, and sometimes both. Jack Aronson throw these parties, and he's a piano bar player who has these orgies, and you just go and you're like, all right, it's very crazy, and but it's all, and you walk everywhere, and so it has a different vibe than getting in a car. You have to get into a cab, and it's just something magical about it. The houses are named, particularly in the Grove, but the houses are named whether it's the two lesbians that own No Man's Land or Viagra Falls. You know, everything. The houses are named, which is so whimsical. And imagine too, like going to a place where 95% of the people that you pass are gay. It's like a world that we own, and I love that.
Right. And the ones that aren't gay are obviously accepting of the gay community there, because if they weren't, there wouldn't be much of a reason for them to be there.
They get voted off the island.
All right, Gilligan.
Yeah, we've had situations before with people that were homophobic and they get the fuck off well, it's not the whole island because there are 13 towns, only two are gay.
Right.
But most of the island hates the fact that when you think Fire Island, you think gay because they're like, it's pretty magical. I've had fights with people. I'm like, go back to Ocean Beach. You're not wanted here. Like, don't come over here. And like, I always say this. I don't go into a sports bar and ask them to put on RuPaul's Drag Race. You don't come to our island and try to dictate to our town and try to dictate to us what you want to make your straight self feel comfortable. So I love the fact that it's all gay because you speak the same language, you understand the same things. I don't have to explain what poppers are.
What are they?
Well, straight people think it's those things that you get for Christmas in England.
Uh-huh. So we know there's some changes coming to the island, to the gay part of the island. Fire Island Pines and Cherry Grove are walking distance from each other. They're adjacent on the island. And both of them are the two towns that you're referring to that are the gay heart of Fire Island.
Yeah.
I recently interviewed Tristan Shoecraft, who is coming in to Fire Island Pines and taking over most of the commercial property in the Pines. He says he's going to be remodeling the Botel, and he claims that he will pay homage to the history. Excuse me. You will play homage to the history of not only the hotel but also the Blue Whale and the pavilion. So we'll see, what happens with that. But is it at all encouraging to you that this renewed interest in Fire Island Pines is going to bring more attention and more traffic in the summertime? Do you think you're going to have a good year this summer because of the fact that there's a lot of talk about it?
Well, first of all, there's not a square inch left any given weekend, so we don't need more traffic. We don't need more documentaries about Fire Island. We don't need more podcasts about Fire Island. It needs a break from all of that. It's been a little oversaturated. I am excited about Tristan because PJ ran it so poorly that I'll be excited to see new energy. And PJ and Eric von Kirchsteiner before him, their motto is sort of like, in order for me to succeed, you have to fail. And I think Tristan and I had lunch and we talked, and I said, look, I'm going to own Fridays. If you come for that, I'll make your life miserable. And I will, I own Fridays. You work on Saturdays. Like, you can still do something on Friday, but don't throw an underwear party up against mine. Don't try it. Way better people have tried and have a lot more experience. And everyone comes and they think, I'm going to go after Daniel and try to take business from him. And all you're really doing is causing the guests to suffer, because then half are going here and half are going there, and there's not really critical mass. In my lunch with Tristan, I got the feeling like, at least he said that he likes the idea of us working together. Now, who knows if that's true? The nice thing is he's not desperate for money, so he can run the place and not be super worried about it making money. So maybe he won't be so competitive. It'd be nice to see someone that would come in and say, it's invasion weekend. Let's figure out how we can work together on invasion weekend. Or like it's Misfire Island. We'd love to be involved some way. That's never happened to me in 25 years. There's
Yeah.
never been a hand across the aisle. So I'm hopeful. Um,
Me too. When I interviewed him, of course, we were talking more about his experience in Los Angeles because that's where his primary bar that's actually operating right now is. And we were talking about the Abbey, and he had said that in the interview that nobody comes to West Hollywood just to go to the Abbey,
right.
and he enjoys working with people there, other bar owners and managers, because a rising tide lifts all ships, is what he said. So the more people that he draws, and the more people that at the time Hart or any of the other bars in West Hollywood would draw, would be better for everybody. It's kind of like the food court concept.
Right.
You have 10 or 12 restaurants in a small area, and more people are likely to go there than they are to the one sandwich shop that's 3 miles away.
Absolutely. But everyone says that when they open a bar or restaurant, and then something happens and they turn into like me, 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 me. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like everyone says that when Bob Pontarelli opened up Industry, he opened it across the street from Therapy and was like, but it'll be good for all of us. But really, he's a shark. So it's like, everyone can say that, but the proof is in the pudding. Like Tristan is the only bar owner, and there have been quite a few that have gone through the pines, and he's the only one that's reached out to me. I For that I give him credit. And we had a great conversation about what we could do together. He offered me to come over. I told him that I'm not married to anything right now, but I have a commitment to the Ice Palace to get it up on its feet, and then I can figure things out from there. I also don't know if he's going to be ready this year. I mean, and that's not a criticism. It's Brookhaven does not hand out permits lightly, but when you have a lot of money, they might. I don't know.
Well, fingers crossed. We hope something happens. He had targeted, I think, Memorial Day of this year,
Mhm.
which is the end of May. So we're only 4.5 months away from there.
Right.
But we can hope. Now, in addition to what you've done with Ice Palace and what you will continue to do for Ice Palace over the coming years, I just learned that you have another iron in the fire. You said you were swamped, that you had no time, that RedEye and then Ice Palace were taking all your time, and now here you go gallivanting off to Mexico.
Well, it was an offer I couldn't refuse. It was one of those things that owning two nightclubs and previously Club Cumming, as you know, I realized that you do them for love. You don't do them necessarily for money. You might be able to make money in them, but it's a tougher business. And I spent some time towards the tail end of COVID down in this little town in Mexico called Zipolite, and I just saw an opportunity. And I just kind of thought I'm at that point in my career in my life, where when you see a great opportunity, you don't let it pass you by because I'm be 60 in 2 years. How many more opportunities like that are going to come across? I think a lot, but I don't know. Um, and I just fell in love with it. And it's unfolded to be this really magical project. As I like to say, I think the Irish say it, I have the wind at my back. I met all the right people and basically bought this piece of property in Zipolite right near the beach. And then the neighbor wanted to sell, so I bought his property. And then the next neighbor wanted to sell, and he bought his property, and it became a giant compound. And now we're building a 16-room guest house with 12 casitas, aka condos, basically for sale. And it's just this big property with like a pool and an outdoor gym and a mezcaleria and a restaurant and a Turkish hammam and just kind of a dreamscape, really.
And where is this located in Mexico? I mean, relative to other cities that people already travel to, where is
Oaxaca. It's 2.5 hours away by car from Oaxaca. Um, and it's in the Oaxaca area, the Oaxaca region on the coast. It's this little beach town, population 931 people, and it's tiny dirt roads, but it's very very gay. And it's Mexico's only legal nude beach, so it's very gay again because they love getting it out. And yeah, and I just fell in love with it. And I saw an opportunity there, and I thought I could put it. I should have a seat at the table here to I got in touch with a bunch of Mexicans. I made some Mexican friends. They're kind of working with me on the project. Once the project manager, once the contractor. I got Hal Hayes, the architect from Fire Island, to be my architect, and it's just going great. I'm very excited about it. It's kind of my segue. I mean, like I said, I'm going to be 60. This project's going to finish by January, a year from now. And then I kind of just segue into my 60s, and hopefully that'll be by that point, the Ice Palace should be up and running on its own, and RedEye, same thing. And then I can kind of just spend more time. Summers on Fire Island, fall in New York, which is beautiful, winters in Zipolite. That's kind of a dream.
Very cool. Now, out of these casitas that you're building there, is one of them a special casita that's designated for your personal use?
Yes. So my brother and I are actually working on this project together, and we're trying to figure out right now where we want to live. Because before I bought this third part of property, we'd built this like tower that was all glass that was going to look out to the beach, and it would be sort of like our bedrooms, like we could. But now we're thinking, because the project's gotten so much bigger, we can actually move into this little more private area. So we're trying to figure it out. But yeah, absolutely. I have so much. I mean, my apartment is brimming with art and things that I've collected over years that I can't wait to bring down there. It's like mementos of times and things I've done, and friends of mine are artists and stuff. So I'm excited to bring a bunch of shit down there. And I'm a maximalist, as you can see by my shelves.
So, based on your description of Zipolite and this project that you have going on, and the mention of the architect coming from Fire Island, and the general description of it being kind of a little cozy beachside property, is this kind of going to be Daniel Nardicio's Fire Island in Mexico, or do you have
Yeah.
different plans?
It's weird. There was that thing, I don't know if you saw it a year or so ago, that they were doing in Australia, they were going to do a new Fire Island. Did you see that? People were making fun of it. If you Google new Fire Island, I bet you it's still up. It was these guys that were trying to get people to come down and buy. You can't create that. You can't necessarily force that to happen. But I do know that I'm spending my summers promoting Zipolite, and in Zipolite, I'll promote the Ice Palace. So I do know that there's going to be a lot of, reciprocity. Um, and I think that my dream is to create this little safe haven. It's built like a fortress. So there are giant walls, and when you come up to it, and I want it to feel like a fortress, so you can, not so that you can keep the world out, is so that you can feel safe in. And so I'm leaning towards more of a fortressy vibe, Mexican brutalist design, very sturdy. And I think it'll be, very nice. It'd be very much like a Fire Island vibe. It's a little bit like Key West. I don't know if you've ever stayed in the Fort
Yeah,
Lauderdale, Key West. Well, the Island House.
yeah.
You know the Island House?
Uh-huh.
John was a friend of mine. And what John had created was so magical because you never wanted to leave. You could go down to Bourbon Street, but why? Like, you had naked people, you had food, you had a bar open 24 hours, you had incredible weather. You know what I mean? There was never a reason to leave the Island House.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're hoping to create that kind of vibe in Mexico and
Yeah.
get the gay community to come visit.
Well, the gay community's already there. Like, every day I'm getting emails from people. I'm going down to Zipolite. Where shall I go to eat? I'm going down to Zipolite. I'm here now. I mean, every day people are going down there. It's like my in my humble opinion, it's going to be the next Tulum in the next couple of years. And what's
Awesome.
beautiful is for the first time in my life, I've been in a position to have a seat at the table and not get priced out. Like, I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and then I got priced out because I was like a young whippersnapper without any money and I couldn't buy and be a part of the fabric of the community. I got priced out. Now it's like in Mexico and Zipolite, I was able to pay decent rate for the property, help give people jobs, but also I could afford to have a seat at the table.
Very cool. Do you have a name for this project yet?
Casa Oasis and Casitas. It spells cock. Casa Oasis Casitas. COC. So we're just calling it cock for short.
All right, then. And you said this is hopefully going to be ready in about a year. The
Yeah.
beginning of 2026 is
It
what you
will
anticipate.
our plan is to start taking reservations Christmas week for the following year. And that way I'll have by that time it'll be built, but then we'll be doing the finishings.
Very cool. And this is going to have, as you said, kind of a hotel or accommodation spaces for people that are traveling. It's going to have casitas where people can live there year round if they choose. I assume it's also going to have some sort of a dance club or disco. Um,
Well, we're actually I don't want to compete with the local clubs and not to sound too pretentious, but I actually bought a property on the beach, which we're converting, me and a friend of mine, Dominic Ford, are converting into a little dance club on the beach because that's where noise is allowed. I feel like Dolly Parton and Best Lore House in Texas. I keep a clean house.
right.
I want the Casa Oasis to be an oasis where you walk in and we'll have parties, we'll have things, but I want I'm a woman of a certain age now and I like my quiet, okay? And I'm not talking about like constant quiet, but I'm just saying I don't need to unless I go for that. And
Right.
I think people are going to rent. What's beautiful about Casa Oasis is you can rent as a hotel, or if you buy a casita, you can rent that out through us and make money immediately. So if you buy a casita for say $350,000, then as soon as we open, we can we'll rent it out for you. So you have the ability to make money on your money really quickly, and guests could then be in a home as opposed to just a hotel room.
Right.
A lot of options, but I want to be really cognizant. I have a friend who bought a place down there, and he was telling me he has these big dance parties, and he's like, all of the guests hate it because they paid money to stay there. So we decided let's open a bar on the beach, which is where the party is.
Is
I've
this
learned
going to be
years ago, it's okay to send people out to a new place. You know what I mean? It's like I want people to feel comfortable to stay, but I'm also okay if they leave.
is this bar that you're putting on the beach within like walking distance or an easy commute?
Totally walking distance, like 4 minute walk.
Oh, excellent. And who doesn't love going for a walk on the beach in
Exactly.
Mexico when the weather's beautiful and you're getting ready to go out and, party for the night?
Exactly.
It's a nice kind of segue. It kind of lets you get your mind clear of what's been going on all day and
Yeah.
explore a little bit of the beach. So that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and at Casa Oasis, we're building an amphitheater, a small, albeit small amphitheater, but a little amphitheater, so that we can have like DJs come. But you stop at a respectable hour because I where I am is it's a quieter part of town, and I want to respect my neighbors. So say 10 o'clock, we turn it off,
Right.
and hey guys, go on over to the surf bar, which is the other place that I'm building. Um, and yeah, and it gives people a chance. Everyone likes to change the scenery, and gay men, God knows, they have the attention of they have the attention of a magpie. They just kind of, oh, there's Dick.
Well, and you could also revive that legendary Fire Island tea dance, which has been going on for almost 60 years now. And I'm assuming there's going to be a pool there. I mean,
Yes,
why wouldn't you have a pool on a beachfront property resort in Mexico? So it'd be the perfect location. I am confident, 100% sure that you could lure Robbie Leslie to go out there and spin a few times.
I love Robbie. You know that.
Me too.
I've worked with him a bunch, and he's one of the kindest men. He's just such a
I just spent New Year's Eve with him,
Oh yeah.
He was in St. Pete, spinning at a bar here called Cocktail, and France Jolie was on stage singing live. So two people whose career started on Fire Island found their way to St. Pete for New Year's Eve this year, and I got to spend the night with them. So
So that event, I think, was it thrown by Bobby Bonanno?
yes, it was.
Okay, yeah. Bobby is a friend of mine. Yeah,
Mine too. I love Bobby.
yeah,
He did a great job with the Fire Island Pines Historical Society.
yeah.
He's still well invested in that, and it's a very strong part of his being. But he's also segueing into doing some of the things that he was already doing with the Historical Society. So he's starting to do some event planning and interacting with bar owners and DJs and performers, and kind of wearing a new hat.
Yeah,
So
he reached out to me and asked me some tips on events and throwing events, and so we were kind of chatting about it. And I think it's a great direction for him to go into.
yeah, I love Bobby. He's a great guy, and he's so humble. He doesn't try to be, he's not a braggart. He's not out there saying, well, I did this and I did that and I did the other thing. Most people don't even know who he is until
Right.
somebody tells them, and I love that. So yeah, I was actually at the same table with him New Year's Eve watching Robbie and France on stage, and so it was a great experience, and I think he feels relieved. As I'm sure you will tell him in your future conversations, events don't always go exactly to plan. You can make 99 plans, and if like 85 of them go right, then you're good. It doesn't have
Yeah,
to be every single thing, because he was telling me, well, there's a few things I would have wished were a little different. Well, yeah, don't we all? I wish it was 10 degrees warmer, but it wasn't. But
exactly.
overall, every review I've heard of the event was fabulous.
You just got to roll with the punches. I remember years ago, for whatever reason, the Suffolk County Police Department decided out of the blue that guys couldn't wear jock straps to the underwear party. Now, this was 4 o'clock at night, that 4 o'clock in the evening. They call the Ice Palace and say, we're sending police officers over. No one can wear jock straps. Now, first of all, gay men love to wear jockstrap. They love to show off their ass. And secondly, I encourage it. It's $5 off if you wear a jockstrap to the underwear party because I'm a top. So we meet, me and my then now business partners, but then they were my employees, and I said to them, okay, what are we going to do? I wanted to hear, like, you got to roll with the punches. What are we going to do? And one of them's like, well, we go over to the mainland, we go to Target, we buy 500 pair of underwear, cheap underwear, and we hand them out at the door. And another one was like, I think what we do is we just basically, I forget what he said, we just basically give people towels at the door because we have all these towels when we do that party, Bath House and Beyond. We give everyone towels and they can put them on. And I said, no, what we're going to do is we're going to stop promoting it. All of the guys that flyer, I'm going to send them to T. I'm going to give them $50 each, and I'm just going to have them tell everyone. Just walk around. No jock strap tonight. The police are after, the popo are coming. No jock straps. Well, got everyone talking. It was crazy. And that night, one person showed up and didn't get the memo with a jock strap. And normally it's got to be at least 60-70% of the guys were jock straps. So it was very interesting. In other words, you got to roll with the punches. You never know what you're going to get thrown. You might be throwing a jockstrap party and find out the cops say you're not allowed to have jockstraps. You got to figure out a way to deal with it. It was still a successful event. People had a blast. And it made us feel a little excited for a little while until I had to get a lawyer involved. Because it's not legal for the cops to say that.
Right. I mean, there are laws on the books in each municipality that outline what is or is not acceptable in public and what body parts can be or cannot be shown. And so unless it's already on the books, they can't just make up rules off the cuff.
Well, the argument my lawyer had was, you're not allowed to show like your genitalia or your sex organs. But the cops don't consider your ass a sex organ because they're straight.
Right.
So thereby that you're allowed to go in a jockstrap because you're not showing a sex organ because the cops don't think of it. So we were going to go to court and literally be like to the police. So you consider anal sex, you know what I mean? Like kind of really
Right.
make it comfortable, but it ended up they just backed off.
Well, good. And it's good for the island anyway to just have, I mean, unless it's really causing problems and there's a high rise in crime with people running around in jockstraps, I don't see how it hurt Cherry Grove or the Pines. Everybody's having a good time. There's money coming into the economy.
Yeah.
It's encouraging people to come back,
Yeah.
and nobody's
It's
getting hurt.
it's insane to me that this is what they're worried about. You
Yeah.
know, it's insane to me that that is, especially because like Suffolk County has a lot of other issues, with drugs and things like that. I would be worried about that. Gay people, I mean, we kind of have our stuff together. You know what I mean?
So when you open in Mexico, you're not going to have that problem because it's a nude beach, right? And it's a private facility.
Exactly. We won't have any problem.
So the underwear party would actually be more like the prom where they have to dress up and put something on.
That's the thing. I'm not going to throw another party, but I do a party here called the Devil Wears Nada. We're doing one tonight instead of the Devil Wears Prada. The Devil Wears Nada tonight. We're doing it, which is, I started the underwear party like a quarter of a century ago, which I'm shocked. I can't believe. Then everyone copied it. Now it's everywhere. But literally, when I did it, no one would have, people were shocked. Now everyone's doing it. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do to take it to the next step? So now I'm doing Naked Party, which is called the Devil Wears Nada. So we're doing that tonight. We've been doing it for about a year. But in Mexico, yeah, I mean, it's like there's nowhere I can go except just let them come in and hang out naked, I guess.
You have to come fully clothed.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
dress code party. You have to wear clothes.
That's so funny. That's very funny. I like that.
Well, as always, we wish you the best of luck in your adventures with the Ice Palace and your new and upcoming project in Mexico. Certainly, the gay nightlife scene will be better for whatever it is you have up your sleeve. So
Thank you.
thank you, Daniel, for what you do.
And I'm going to get you an Ice Palace t-shirt. I apologize. They're on the island, but I promise you I'll get you one. One
I'll
with
be
the old
looking
logo.
with the what?
The old logo. The
Yeah, when I first saw that, when you started using that logo, I thought, oh, he created a new logo for the Ice Palace. And then I realized that was the old logo.
that's the old logo, but for trademark reasons. So I don't want to get into this too much, but like we we have no idea who created that logo. And then I put something on Facebook, and someone, a drag queen who shall remain nameless, said, I have the trademark for that logo. And so we thought, uh, whether she does or doesn't, we're just gonna create our own. You know what I mean? But I do love that. And it was on the shirts. So I figure I'll use them until they're gone. And then that's it. So you'll basically own a collector's item.
All right, then. Well, I appreciate you spending the time today to talk to us about your adventures. And we'll put some credits up at the end that direct people to the appropriate websites and information that they need to find you and track you down, find out about your projects. And we look forward to the opening of your project in Mexico next year.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Daniel.
much, Art. I really appreciate it. Take care.
You too.